So I'm here with Steve Regoci, CEO of Garibaldi Resources. Steve, thanks for having me in Vancouver.
Appreciate the chance to sit down and discuss our program.
Absolutely. I just got back from a site visit with your neighbor, Metalis. I was up there at Thunder North. It was incredible to see the landscape of, even just the rocks at Thunder North and then onto the E&L. I mean, very similar situation going on there, but there was a lot of activity going on in your area, so that's good to see. Do you want to just review the last news release? Because I feel like that one was a pretty significant news release for Garibaldi.
Yeah, I agree. I think hole 53 is a game changer.
Yeah.
So there's no doubt that the anticipation is growing. What we're learning as we move forward here is pretty exciting. The entire team is energized.
Yeah.
And it feels very much like we're on the track of something significant here that is going to, give us some real high priority targets out from the mineralized zone to expand this thing, because it looks like, we started off with something fairly limited, and now it's over 120 meters in east-west length, and it continues to grow. And tracking down the source of that, this is where we're getting a high degree of excitement. So that, like I said, the entire team is very energized.
Was it, I'm just jogging memory here, was it 128 or 133 meters of mineralization in 54 that you stated, waiting for assays, right?
Yeah, there's different sections of it. There's from disseminated to taxitic to orbicular to semi-massives to massive sulfides. But there is approximately measured 142. We'll see how how much of it is the grade that we have. Our cutoff at being 1%, but it's certainly very similar to hole 54. I mean, it was quite a surprise to get an intersection of 86 meters.
That's right, my bad. That was hole 53 that I was referencing on 133 meters of mineralization, and then 86 meters of, what was it?
It was 86 meters of continuous mineralization in hole 53.
Right.
And in hole 54, we have 6 different mineralized sections that total approximately 142 meters.
Yeah.
And within that, near the bottom, the exciting part is we're into a gabbroic chamber that has over 20 meters of very strong mineralization. And it's a chamber that is, we're very encouraged by this leading to a pathway.
Yeah, Jeremy talked about that in my last interview with him. You guys know that you have multiple chambers there.
Definitely.
And we know the grade. One thing, I did a video recently, the last couple of days, when I was making my trek out there to the mountain, and I was just sharing my story with my community, saying, I feel like one of the biggest mistakes that juniors make is they're not honest with their investors, and it's very difficult to get it back.
Sure.
And even puts in like IR companies in a difficult position when, they're getting all the calls from their network, and their network, if you leave as a client, they still only have that network, right? I came to you at PDAC and I said, Steve, last year, here's some of my concerns. And as you know, and I know, when you're building a company, there's always ups and downs. You know what I mean? Like, that's a realistic trend, not just, but because I asked you what your solutions were, and I really liked what you said to me, now you almost you're more than halfway through the drill year. How do you feel with the staff that you have this year? Like the drill team and all that stuff?
Well, again, you go back to the beginning, and we had some very, very good direction and leadership from Everett Makla. We lost him. He did an exceptional job of training the geological team of young geologists led by Jeremy Hansen, who's really very brilliant young geologist. Yeah. We've got some wonderful people like Peter Lightfoot and Mike Mugridge, all these people that have spent their entire careers working in the nickel industry. And so now that this year has progressed from some of the discussions that we had about the problems last year, we're absolutely finding that the moves that we made are paying dividends in the sense that we're being far more productive. Everything is being run more efficiently, so we're spending less dollars.
Yeah.
We brought a B3 in and stripped it down and gave us the lifting power of a B3, but the cost of a B2 per hour. The drilling company, this rig has really outperformed our expectations for sure. They can drill down to 2,000 meters, and the team has figured out how to resolve all the water issues.
Yeah, that's a big one. Water.
It's a huge
Maybe
issue.
elaborate a little bit on that one, but I think we should cheers first.
Sure.
It would be rude of me to take a sip. Thank you.
Cheers.
Yes, cheers to the camera guy.
Yeah.
My friend Nelly. Yeah, let's elaborate a little bit on the water, because I know that potentially you could be set up to go deep into the season this year if you wanted to, but you had to have made changes for that.
Yeah, we've resolved some of that with the system of how we set up. Luckily for that adit that is down there, it's providing us with ample water. Moving it up the hill to the 6,000 foot level has been a little challenging, and it created problems for us last year, freezing up. They've found ways to resolve that and heat the water and move it up, and then reheat the water and move it up, and just keep it moving. Yeah. And so that's created a lot of efficiency as far as delays in the rig going down, and everything that creates a delay cascades, and it impacts your helicopter time and everything else. So we've been far more efficient and far more productive and more cost-effective fashion.
Would you say that it's possible to keep one drill rig if you wanted to going into deep into November, even potentially December, if the water was to stay warm?
There's no doubt that we have the ability now that we've gone through the learning curve of keeping a rig moving, drilling right beyond I think the latest we were last year was the first week of November.
Yeah, I think so too.
So there's both the last 2 years we were kicking off the mountain because of Mother Nature.
Yeah.
But I do believe that we could stay and keep a rig turning there.
Awesome.
And it may very well, because what's been unfolding up there right now is constructive enough from our perspective that we're really going at this aggressively after 53. We're really pounding the holes up there, and we're bringing in a third rig.
Yeah.
So we've got a very significant new strategy about building pads out on the ice now that we figured out how to do that again. The guys up there are amazing. The Peter McGinnis and his crew of pad builders are just brilliant people.
Can you elaborate on Peter's character, a little bit about Peter? Because I've heard some stories, but maybe you can explain a little bit about him.
He's just kind of a there are no problems, only solutions kind of guy.
Right. That's awesome.
You got a situation, you want to build something hanging off a cliff. It looks impossible. He'll figure out a way to do it. So he's just one of those guys that is a doer, not a talker.
Absolutely. Right? And I know now from coming off the mountain that you would need that type of personality.
Yeah.
Like, hey, because obviously you guys are going to be drilling from a new angle, which is probably going to lead you guys to do some significant lengths potentially, and that would be due to drilling it from the ice, right?
Yes.
So that's great to have him on board. And I also heard he keeps a tight ship too.
Yeah, so we're very happy with every facet of the operation up there so far this year, from the pad builders to the drillers to the helicopter company to just the entire crew.
Right.
Has been working, it seems like 24/7, because it seems like that kind of a job for me, from my perspective. But it's been a very productive year so far, and it's just hard not to believe that we're entering a new phase. We're going to ramp up to the next level.
Steve, when you guys first took us on, we had to do this with you, where we had to take everybody's questions, because there's, last year was a little bit rougher after this, of course, enormous year. And maybe that's why it was amplified, because you had this blue sky event and then it came down, whatever. But now I get more confidence from you. Even when I talk to Jeremy, I talk to you, there's just really evident confidence. How good does it feel after that last news release where, I'm not even going to ask you questions about naysayers, because I feel like a lot of these news releases are just proving these things factually now.
Well, they're running out of things to say, so I get some of the questions that shareholders, not just yourself, but other shareholders say about are you drilling this properly? Well, yes, according to the guys in Sudbury, we're drilling this exactly how you would drill a massive sulfide. You don't want to lose track of that.
Yeah.
You're not drilling a copper porphyry.
Yep.
And if anybody has any questions about the value of that, it's our job to de-risk this thing and put together the highest volume of highest value products, which is the massive sulfides, for our shareholders as quickly as soon as possible.
Yeah.
And so we're following a strategy that's completely logical, and anybody that disagrees with that, well, they should go out and do the math, perhaps find a competent geologist that can do an in situ value on a 20 meter by 20 meter cube of massive sulfides, and tell me you wouldn't drill into that because it's too close to the last hole.
Yeah.
You got to be crazy, right?
Absolutely. The price of nickel has had, let's just say it's one of the best metals out there this year, best performing metals. We already know that the demand is coming down the road here quickly. With the increase in price of nickel, do you think that would incentivize a major to kind of, if they were keeping their eye on you, now they're just like, okay, wait a second, this thing's going to move, we could be paying more. I mean, how do you see that on a macro level?
Well, we're already seeing that. We knew from the beginning that our runway would be the price of nickel. We're seeing that we've been approached by a number of large players. So we've had discussions, and there's no doubt that at some point, and hopefully not too far down the road, we're going to have an X and a Y and a Z, and be able to talk about it when it's to the benefit of the shareholders that maximizes that benefit. We're not going to talk about a deposit that is open in all directions and talk about where we're at now when it could be 10 times that size. We don't know how big it is.
Right.
So it's kind of silly to talk about, why haven't you already put out a 43-101? I mean, but the larger companies that, they're all aware of us.
Yeah.
And it's, when you come to that number of the scale of this thing, it's obviously they're very, very intrigued by it, because we know the kind of interest that they've shown us already is kind of unusual from our experience.
Okay.
And so there's a lot of people looking at this nickel market and the commodities complex in general and seeing an uptrend.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure investors would love to see someone come in, maybe not on a joint venture, but just on a strategic basis. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what the future brings. You recently just announced that you're bringing in a third drill rig, and you're keeping it within a certain, now you got these drills within a certain area. So you're obviously going really hard in that area. You like the plan, obviously. What's the reason?
There's no reason to pull any punches. We're very, very confident in the direction that we're headed.
Yeah.
We're very, very confident in this deposit, which is just continues to surprise us to the upside. I mean, what can you say? And we started off with something we were wondering what it was all about, and now we're, the first time we saw the lower discovery zone in a BHEM, it was modeled by 15 meters by 20 meters, and now it's over 120 meters long, and it continues to go. We're looking at the dip of this thing when we start drilling from the ice. How large is this thing?
Right.
So
that's what the ice is going to give you.
It's going to give us a totally different geometry and fill in the gaps about what we don't know about this and where it's headed. So it's really, really exciting insofar as how we're going at this thing and the developments as they unfold, because the scale of this thing, I just, we won't get into any forward-looking discussions, but I don't think this is a small thing.
Let's have a little bit of a backwards discussion.
Okay.
What was the reason for going up to the mountain not too long ago?
We wanted to discuss the strategy of the third rig, about building pads out on the ice, and I also, wanted to update one of our largest shareholders. So we went up and took an assessment and had a really, really constructive, in-depth planning session with Peter Lightfoot was in camp, and Jeremy. And we've had some Skype sessions since then with Rogerio and the Vector people. And again, the level of excitement continues to grow.
Is there anything you're not saying about that visit?
There's lots I'm not saying about the visit. But we'll just we'll leave that for another.
I had to ask.
Yeah.
And you recently just pushed back the timeline for your 450 warrants. What's the reason for that?
Well, the exercise of those, which at this particular freeze frame in time, are not in the money, we feel that they will get exercised. We're confident that there's a very, very good chance that they will get exercised. So there's no reason when most of them are controlled by someone who's basically partnering up with you and is going to back up the situation. You would definitely make that consideration. They get exercised, and it puts over $13 million for next year into the tank, and so we're going to go into next year even without that in pretty decent shape. So,
would you be interested in bringing in another partner on a strategic basis?
There's nothing on or off the table, but it's got to be a situation where it's got to be an offer that we can't refuse.
And the right partner.
And it's got to be the right partner.
Steve, what is the geophysics telling you about this right now?
Well, certainly we wouldn't be where we're at without the fact that the borehole electromagnetics up there in particular works exceptionally well. I mean, I don't even want to categorize it as batting 1,000, but where we've where there has been electromagnetic conductors defined, and we've drilled into them. They've been massive sulfides, or certainly there's massive sulfides there. Even if there's disseminate and then bang, you hit the massive sulfide. So it's a tool that it's a go-to tool up there, and we can't go without it. It's exceptional, and it's showing us that there's mineralization. Okay, how do I categorize this? So we've drilled up to 60 plus holes. I'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
The number of holes that we haven't hit any mineralization on is sparse. I mean,
you're looking like Wayne Gretzky.
It's not even one hand. Not even So it's just a very, very valuable tool. BHEM is downhole electromagnetic surveys. We're actually now bringing in, we've been bringing in for a couple months now, bringing in PCB pipe and putting it down holes where we can get them down holes where the ground's not too broken up and rubble, and so we can leave them open and resurvey them. Okay. And it's a very, very, very valuable tool. We just completed a portion of surface UTAM, which is a surface version of what we're doing downhole. And it's giving us really, really important data. So,
what is the specific reason for bringing in Vector towards the end of the season? You had them at the beginning, great move, and now you're bringing them towards the end. What is the rationale behind that?
Well, it's just kind of an unfolding. It's kind of an unfolding story that develops as you move forward, and so they've been providing some really, really critical, important insight about how this thing is dipping and what they see, and we've been able to test those ideas out because they're very specific. We have a set of ideas. They have some ideas that are really based on no experience necessarily up on the ground, but just what they're seeing in the orientated core and the analysis of the data that we provide them, and they're giving us unvarnished opinions about, look, from our experience of doing this for the last 30, 40 years with Inco, Vale, and this is what we see. Like these sulfides are collecting, the copper is at a higher level, so we can tell that this fluid has been moving in a particular direction, and that kind of information is absolutely critical. So instead of having 5 or 6 possibilities, we're really down to 2. We want to merge that into one, and that's where we're headed.
Can you think of any other deposit in the world that compares to this, or that you even look at and you go, well, yeah, this kind of resembles that? I mean, the last the news release that you had when you talked about the PGEs, you had was rhodium in there?
Yes, we were doing metallurgical work, and there was a reason Peter wanted to get a handle on the rare platinum group metals. He's all about the analysis of these things. It's the amount of detail that Peter goes into when he looks at these things is beyond my pay grade. It's just way above my head. But so that was kind of a surprise. We didn't expect that we'd see rhodium, which I think is up around $4,500 an ounce.
It's
Jeez,
the
what am I saying?
rarest.
It's the rarest of rare PGM metals,
Yeah.
and that is quite a surprise. So, you know, at some stage, if you're doing the metallurgy to see the economics of how this works, if you're going to recover the platinum groups, then within that same circuit, you should be able to recover some of these. So we'll see. It's very, very early in the metallurgy of this,
Yeah.
but it's extremely optimistic. Absolutely. I mean, these grades, first of all, are rare.
Yeah.
Rare metals, but no pun intended. It's very rare to see them compared to other metal districts. Norilsk and has a large platinum group, but not so much rhodium. Same thing with the Chinese deposits or Sudbury. So it's very unusual. Again, you've got up to 11 metals now.
Yeah.
At the ENL at Nickel Mountain, and it's not. I guess it's not so surprising since we're along such a massive dynamic rift like the SK Rift, and 10 or so kilometers west of the SK Creek mine, which is one of the more prolific high-grade mines ever in.
It's crazy. I mean, I've been reading and learning about this for years now, of how they talk about how there's all these other mines in the area.
Yeah.
But it's true. Like, you get up there in a chopper and you're like, yeah, there's Bruce Jack's that mountain, Johnny Mountain's over here, and Snip Mine's right here, and it's like, okay, what's next?
Something really, really unique going on in that district, and makes it one of the richer districts pedigree-wise, from going back 100 years ago to today.
Yeah.
In Pretium and some of their crazy gold assays and what we're seeing here as far as being in the upper echelon of nickel copper sulfides of any deposit globally. I mean, it's crazy. So,
and there's not going to be a lot of ore to take out of there, right? It's
no, you wouldn't need a large tonnage at those grades. You could even do a direct shipping of ore, which is
Jeremy talked about that.
Yeah, so there's a lot of options here to kickstart this thing.
Yeah.
And we're not going to leave a stone unturned to make sure that whatever we do, we're going to maximize the value to our shareholders. Period. That's our only job.
Yeah.
And so, I'm sorry if there's more information that we're not putting out there to the extent of replying to these naysayers or whatever you want to call them. But I don't think to me, it's just noise. They don't know what they're talking about.
Yep. I would say this. You have done a fantastic job at raising money, and at high valuations. It seems kind of like you have a plan to do that again, but not here, but not at these prices.
Well, the key thing is the most productive thing you can do as a management team is to minimize dilution, and that's been our mantra since day one. Since I got involved with the company in 2004, so. It's really just something that we absolutely are focused on, and we've been very, very fortunate to be able to hit our stride and catch the momentum that we caught. And it's not surprising in a system this dynamic and this rich that people are, in a rising market, start to look at you and go, okay, well, these guys have really got something special. And how rare these things are. They come up every 20, 30 years.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's we're to the extent that we can maintain a minimum dilution, we'll look at doing that, and that's really de-risking these things and trying to add value, and that's part of the equation on dilution, is to minimize the amount of shares so that whatever that magical valuation is at the end, divided by a minimum amount of shares. That's the key to value.
Absolutely. I want to talk a little bit about Eric Sprott.
Okay.
He exercised those warrants. He's got the 450s. You've extended them. What's it like working with him? Do you think he'll have an opportunity to, get more than 20% of this company? I mean, it seems friendly.
Yeah, Eric Sprott is, he is obviously one of the highest profile investors in the industry. So I'm not going to say a whole lot about that situation beyond the fact that he's been exceptionally supportive through the good and the bad, when these markets go up and down.
Yeah.
and I think he's believed in us all the way, and I think that in itself is worth a huge amount to the team and the moving forward. Obviously, again, the idea of having someone like him own that kind of percentage, he's someone that is very, very knowledgeable, and if let's say one of these larger companies want to have their way with us, it's going to be a lot more difficult to take us out. They're going to have to probably pay a premium rather than buy us at a discount, because you have someone of Eric's capabilities, because he's an exceptional fellow to have on board.
As a fellow GGI investor, would you maybe have a special resolution to let him buy more of the company? Is he that friendly? On a strategic basis?
I won't answer that specifically beyond the fact that I'll let you know ASAP. It's not like we haven't considered that, so I wouldn't be concerned about that. I think, again, he's let's put it to you this way: he already owns 20% of our company.
Steve, you're so focused on Garibaldi, and as a shareholder, I love that, because it's obviously where what's driving the value right now, and the valuation is based in on the nickel. So it's probably why you're not talking about the other properties. But we always ask you this question: can we get an update? A little bit. Is there anything else going on? You see it in their financials. You spent some money in other places. What's the plan at this point?
The plan would be to get to the E&L to a stage where it's a standalone. Which, I mean, how far are we from that? I won't comment at this stage. Again, it's too forward-looking. But at that stage, we would consider a lot of different options, and how we do that and the timing of it is the issue. So you could spin off some of the other assets. You could you could do joint ventures. You could sell off. There's a lot of different things that will generate value for the company and the shareholders. Outside of the E&L.
Do you feel like, from a macro perspective, obviously we're in the longest bull run ever, and the price of gold and silver is going up. The Fed's cut rates today, quarter basis points. Who knows how the market will react over the next 6 months to that. But do you feel like you've got more leverage in your back pocket, sensing that mining could really be moving in an explosive direction over the next maybe 1 to 2 years? And will that change your strategy with these properties on a leverage basis?
Well, one of the things about it is that we'll be able to spend as we move along, we'll be able to spend more money on taking something that's almost just past first base to second base.
Yeah.
And again, adding value to the situation before you maybe do a deal on that property, or include it in a package that you spin off, or there's a lot of value that I think we've put together. We've been collecting companies or properties in our company, in Mexico and in British Columbia since 2004. So I think we've got some really, really good projects that some of them are maybe going to surprise a few people at the at the stage we're at on some of these targets that we've been doing work on the ground. Mm-hmm. But we can't get into. We got to put news out on that at some point. Mm-hmm. And I think when the dust settles at the end of this season, there'll be a more comprehensive overview of what's going on up in SK Creek for all the rest of the properties. People forget that we have the ground that is directly contiguous to the actual SK Creek mine to the northeast.
Yep.
And I had one of the key geologists in that project back in the day when it was the biggest mine in most richest mine in Canada, not the biggest, who told me, hey, don't let anybody tell you that you don't have something interesting on your ground. Mm-hmm. So we were lucky to acquire that, and so there's that, and there's other projects, other VTEM targets. Don't forget, even the E&L Gabbro is 12 kilometers at least.
Yeah,
so
the trend. There's
just so much going on here that what you don't want to do is distract from our primary focus, because that is what leads us to the leverage that we're going to have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, last year, obviously, it probably wasn't a good idea to talk about it, right?
Right.
But as you get more data out to the market on the E&L, maybe you can, would you potentially think about updating people on it? Because you
Sure.
have so much
As I
more
said,
data.
once the smoke clears on this
Yeah.
season,
Yeah.
there'll be lots to talk about, and we've done more work on a few fronts, and there are results that we have to talk about because there's a thing called full disclosure. So there may be a couple of targets there that are I think we're high on. Our geology team is very, very high on a couple of targets.
Okay.
And so we'll explain that to the market as we move forward. But we want to, right now, things are almost boiling over at the E&L. So we want to get through this, keep pounding these holes and see how this all unfolds and how far into the season we can get. I mean, who knows? We got into November, maybe we'll get into December. We don't know.
Yeah.
We can't predict that.
You think there's an opportunity maybe next year you go 3 to 5 rigs?
If
Too early, right?
we had, I mean, the water, we've got a handle on it, but could we, because of the water, could we add more? Possibly. There's no doubt that obviously, it's a results-driven situation. If we hit a monster hole and we're able to raise significant at a higher stock price, there's no limit to what we wouldn't consider doing as far as advancing something that is starting to mushroom on us.
Okay, so is that why you're drilling on the ice?
That's part of the reason, because we will learn so much from what's going on down there and how much extension this thing is. Like there's obviously XYZ dimensions, and we're not even sure of the dip of the lower discovery zone yet. And now all of a sudden the upper discovery zone is doubled and it's almost as big as the lower discovery zone. And now we're hitting a chamber,
a lower discovery.
Under the lower discovery zone. So we're into something here. We'll keep you informed.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, Steve's got to get out of here. We're gonna do like a rapid fire where I ask some of the questions from our chat rooms.
Okay.
On our server, GGI MTS by far gets the most engagement. It's absolutely crazy. So, for fun, can you give us words that rhyme with names of majors that have NDAs?
Okay, so non-disclosure agreements are something that, again, we've had discussions about that with a number of companies. But unfortunately, until we're satisfied that we can sign one where there's no hostile takeover, we're just going to keep them biting at the bit or chomping at it anyways.
If you were to sign one of those, would you allow someone to buy up to X percentage on the open market?
We would probably want to do something like maybe have these people put up some money, and then you might consider giving them a call on participating to a small percentage on financings moving forward. Okay. It'll be something creative like that if that happens.
I'm liking music right now. It's perfect for our chat rooms. How do you prioritize anomalies to drill and where to focus the drill? How much is planned?
Not every single intersection has been BHEM generated. We've been lucky a few times, but mostly borehole electromagnetics. We drill a hole, we put now PCB piping down, we send down a electromagnetic tool. Lamontagne is the contractor, they're the world's best. And we've got a couple of the best geophysicists on the planet, Jules Lajoie and Alan King. And Jules is doing all the interpretation on the borehole EM, and he'll give Jeremy the exact coordinates from a platform and say, here's where it is in 3D space, here are the coordinates to hit this thing dead center.
We'll just ask you one or two more here. Will Jeremy and team be drilling into Anomaly B this year? No.
I don't think priority-wise, because of if things were going a different way and we were having less success, we might look at other things are going too well.
Yeah, so you want to focus
So
more on that.
we're not going to distract from that at all. There's all the time in the world. None of those anomalies are going anywhere.
Yep. Has Eric Sprott been to the camp this year?
No, he did come last year though.
Okay. There seems to be a delay on assays again this year. Is there more issues from labs? What effect does that have on the drill planning?
No, actually, they've only come close to penalty a couple of times. We're staying on top of that, and I don't think it's anywhere compared to last year. We're doing much better there. So, having said that, I keep, squeaky wheel gets the oil. So I keep phoning and beating them up as much as I can to make sure they stay on top of things.
We'll leave you with the best question yet, Steve. I
Okay.
promise you.
Sure.
This is your last month with Follow the Money's contract. Will you be renewing for another 10 years?
I don't know about 10 years, but renewing. I mean,
Because you'll be bought out in like
yeah.
2.
Yeah. I mean, doesn't that go without saying?
I just made that one up.